everybody, and welcome to The Game is Afoot. We are back with Dennis, who played Stars Without Number. I almost said The Number in Our Stars.
The Fault
like
in
The
Our
Fault in Our...
Stars.
Yes.
by John Green.
It would be a very different book.
Yeah.
Stars Without Number. I am Ryan. I use she, her pronouns. Dennis, why don't you reintroduce yourself with your pronouns?
Yeah, my name's Dennis Foray, and I use he, they pronouns.
Dennis, you come from another network on the Be Gay Roll Dice, another podcast on the Be Gay Roll Dice network. You want to talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, sure. You want me to talk about the network first?
Sure. Whatever order we want to do things in.
Yeah, we're both partners on the same network of Be Gay Roll Dice, which is this nice coven for queer people to come together with their TTRPG podcast and work together and getting the word out, adding other voices to the table. It's a big thing we're about. I'm from Control Group Podcast, where a big mission statement of ours is making sure that everyone has a voice at the gaming table. Because there are a lot of, awesome, amazing, big name D&D and TTRPG podcast and actual play shows out there. However, I feel a lot of them have a very homogenized look to them. We at Control Group Podcast specialize in testing the systems that other big name podcasts don't, and featuring players from the big swath of color and queer.
Yeah, I haven't actually gotten the opportunity to listen to your pod yet. I'm trying to work through my way through everyone on our network.
Yeah. It's daunting.
It's daunting. It's slow going.
Yeah.
Is there any particular game or arc that you've enjoyed on your show that you'd like to hype right now for new listeners?
Yeah, so I'd say if you're going to start out anywhere, I always push people towards Attack of the Feels, which is our Lasers and Feelings hack, where our podcast member Hadley turned Lasers and Feelings into a Hitchhiker's Guide game. That's the height of our comedy. We're all, the main testers are all also trained comedians in Chicago. So I think that's the height of our hilarity there. As far as other fun things, right now, as of this episode being recorded, right now we're launching our Warmer in the Winter playtest, which is a system that is around building a Hallmark Christmas rom-com movie as a system. So we've been...
That's so good.
That one is an absolute blast, and that one is also funny. And I definitely, by the time this gets out, we'll be returning. We're going back to the very first story we started out with. Our very first campaign was a Monster of the Week campaign that we called It Came from Lake Mary, which is centered around the hometown in which we all met as friends, the four people that started the podcast, Flagstaff, Arizona. And we're going back to that world of teenagers hunting monsters in Flagstaff, Arizona. But as we are a podcast that's dedicated to testing different systems, we switched from Monster of the Week Tome of Mysteries to Monster Hearts. So a little bit more romantic take on it, but still that fun, dark, eerie hometown feel that we're going for.
Oh, that's really...
Yeah.
What gave you all the idea of starting your podcast?
We always wanted to do something creatively as friends in the sphere, and we were all really already into TTRPGs. And what had happened is I was the first of our group to move to Chicago. Everyone else was still either graduating or staying in Flagstaff for another year. And we still all wanted to hang out even though we were separate. So one day, my podcast mate, Marcus, they came up to me, and he went, "Why isn't there a system for Power Rangers, actually?" And I hadn't thought about it, but I have an encyclopedic knowledge of the Power Rangers and Super Sentai universe that I didn't know at that point. I was like, yeah, that would be kind of fun. We'd do this fun thing where it's kind of a legacy thing, and we can kind of run through everything. Actually, and if we take like a weird bad end out of Time Force, where Wes and Jen stay together in the present, and Jess doesn't go back to and then I ran off and created this fun little campaign that spanned like half a year with them, using this modified D6 system I had created for myself. And then eventually, over time, we decided, like, hey, we've been doing this for fun just to hang out with each other. Now that we're all in Chicago, like, let's do it again for real as a podcast.
I love that this started with Power Rangers.
Started with Power Rangers.
Oh my god. My husband, Mads, didn't really watch a lot of TV growing up. So there will be times when I'm just like, this thing was so cool. And they'll just look at me and say, I didn't watch that.
Yeah, that's the worst.
And so when the Power Rangers movie came out, and I was so hyped, they just kind of looked at me sideways like, okay, I'll watch this for you.
Yeah.
And then we both really loved it.
Yeah, it's a pretty good movie.
It's a good movie.
Yeah.
So it started as Power Rangers.
Yeah.
There's the four of you.
Yeah.
I already lost my next question.
Yeah, it started as the four of us, and like as we grew and decided, our mission statement was like making sure there were the most voices on our podcast. Eventually, like quickly, as the world came to a standstill in a certain year, we had to move online.
That year that will not be named.
Yep, exactly. And as we did that, we started what was supposed to be just a fun little thing. I called it One Shot of Palooza, where we just tested a bunch of systems that I quickly wanted to get to. And we had a month straight of episodes that just featured other guests, other friends we had found, other players we had found amongst the internet. And then we moved away from like the idea of just the core four to incorporate all of these other players to come and test with us. So we made sure we had a large swath of people and voices on the podcast. As at the time when we started the podcast, it was just 4 bi guys. 2 of them were of color, so we were like, that's enough to show representation. But now as of like our current series, as we're getting into Return of Lake Mary, it's us. We have a wonderful ace woman we have on the podcast, Sarah. She's wonderful. She's kind of joined us as like the core group, and then we just switch out players. So we kind of have like a main system that's being tested, then we have like a side system filled with other people. Our last series that just finished, the guild that uses fellowship, was me leading it as the overlord and 4 completely new testers that I was running my very first like long play with.
I love long form games, which could very well be part of why I goofed up on your game episode and accidentally made a long form game.
Yeah.
They just let you go so much more in depth with things. When you're trading players in and out, are they going in and out of that long form story, or are they hopping around to their own stories?
Yeah, so it's we continue. Our general thought is we're testing the system for people, so we don't keep them in for a long time. When I say long play, I meant we typically have a 10 episode campaign. So roughly an hour and a half for each episode. So roughly we tell a story in the 12 hours if we do a full campaign, quote unquote, for us. And it's just to give people a test of like what ideas you can throw to it, the limits you can stretch it to, and what fun things you can do with the system. So yeah, we're not the traditional, my very big problem with a very, very famous D&D podcast is that there's just so much you need to catch up on. You do the math, and it's 2 straight months of content for you to catch up to be live. So if you weren't there from the beginning,
and they're always adding more.
Always more. Every week there is another 4 hours for you to catch up on. So it is daunting. So we wanted to create something bite-sized. That you can just hop into, and if you like it, you like it. It's there for you, and if you don't, it'll be done in 4 weeks,
I like bite size. That's a good way to put it.
A little aperitif, tapas.
Yes. I think that was part of why when I had to change formats for the game as Afoot, I was like, oh, we can do all these one-shot games, and it'll be great to try out all of these different systems, and it'll be so cool. I'm still working on getting good at that.
It is a lot. We've gone back to One Shot of Palooza 2, One Shot of Palooza, so I'm also leading out another setup. I know, it's my favorite. I say it every One Shot of Palooza 2, One Shot of Palooza is my favorite joke. Thank you. You're the first person who has ever laughed at it. I think it's the funniest thing in the world.
I love it so much.
It's the worst aphorism, but I love it. But
So
yeah,
good.
just switching system from system. Luckily, I found a lot of smaller systems for One Shot Appaloosa 2, and that really helps. So a DM pro tip: try to find one pagers, because you'll as we did today. Stars Without Numbers is a big book for that for that thing, and as I was reading that, I was like, oh god, this is a lot. We played Hero Dog Saves Town the other time on Control Group. Which is just like, it's just essentially an improv game with like 2 rules that you roll dice for. And that's like great for an hour worth of content,
Did I send you I Kissed Mothman Behind the Arby's?
No, I think I've seen all of the monster-esque one-shots. I have them on a list somewhere.
I'll send you that one. I've played
yes.
it twice now for the show, and it's so cute.
That and, what is it? My gift for Bigfoot is left in the back of his... Or my birthday present for you is left in the back of Bigfoot's car.
Yes. Yes. My first coming across that one was on a bonus episode for the Adventure Zone.
Yep.
In which Griffin McElroy plays himself as a 12-year-old boy.
Yeah, that's the best.
Yeah. Oh my god. Have you found a system that's your favorite so far in trying all these things out?
Yeah, I think the reason I think we came back to the Lake Mary mythos was because I really love Monster of the Week. It was my little baby when I created the idea for the podcast. And it was the first thing we decided to go with, to be like, hey, this is what we'll send to the world. One of our first ideas was actually not until like later into our first year. We had released Compass Rose, which is an anime system that I create. We also create systems on the podcast. Both Marcus and I are game designers as well. So I created a PBTA hack for shonen anime specifically, because I felt a lot of shonen anime systems are very like crunchy when it came to that, and I was like, wouldn't a nice 2d6 system with basic tropes into playbooks be fun? So Compass Rose was actually one of our first ideas, and we were like, we don't know if everyone's gonna enjoy like a weeb short play TTRPG podcast.
Add that to the list of my things to pick up.
And yeah, so I would say I keep on coming back to Monster of the Week as a system that I've truly enjoyed.
The first episode of the new format is Monster of the Week, and I did it with Zoe Hovland, who composed our theme music, and it's so good.
It's so good.
And I substitute, and I was talking with a kid in one of my substitute classes the other day, and I mentioned Final Fantasy XIV, and he's like, oh, you game? I'm like, yeah, mostly tabletop, though, and we just talked about how if you're going to get started on a Monster of the Week, because it's so much more accessible.
Yeah, that's one of the things that has like really kept me going about the podcast is the reach we've had with certain people. I have a couple friends in the mental health industry, and like pretty early on I received a text from one of them to be like, hey, had never heard of Monster of the Week before. I've started using it in my like kids group therapy sessions, and they're absolutely loving it. And like I just started crying. I was like, this is so beautiful. Like, this is like what I wanted to do with the podcast. It's just like, hey, here's the system, you should try it out. Like, I know you've never heard of like anything other than the prototypical Tolkien elves and dwarves and orcs. Like, our second series we put up was Pasión de las Pasiones, which is a telenovela system, and like we had never heard of it prior to that, and we tried that, and we loved that.
That sounds like a blast.
It's a blast. It's amazing. We go on.
Oh my gosh.
I guest on Critical Bits sometimes, and they love it. They love that system so much they call it the only system that exists. So.
Oh, that's so good. When I started this podcast, it was just because I love my friends so much, and I wanted to shove them out to the world and be like, here, look at them.
Yep.
And I love that your show and my show are now kind of two sides of the same coin as far as TTRPGs go.
Yeah.
Yours is, I love this system.
Yeah.
Look at it.
Yeah.
Which is really just the flip side of, I love these people. Look at them.
Yeah.
We're going to have to do more stuff together. This is great.
We can definitely do that.
Do you mind kind of talking for a bit about what it was like to figure out your queer identity and what that identity is?
Yeah. So, man, came from not much a stringent or kind of conservative family. My family was very, at least my mother and father were very apolitical growing up. But my father, as a black man of his time, I felt growing up, I definitely, looking back, I could be like, yeah, definitely I was not straight growing up. I did a lot of very queer things growing up, and I felt like my father tried his best to curtail a few of those. Didn't do a good enough job. But yeah, I identify as bi. For a long time I was just going by queer, because that felt good, and it still does feel good. So I traipse around between queer, bi, and pan. I love people. They're all sexy. I don't it's just so silly to me sometimes when I think about it. So yeah,
I mean, you'll find no argument here.
yeah. So yeah, it was like a close kept friend secret probably throughout of all of college. I didn't want to make a deal about coming out or anything, because I hate the idea of coming out, that you have to, like, here's this big show of what I am, and why can't it just be, this is what I am, this is normal, you know? No one comes out
And
as
it's a
straight.
show that never stops.
Yeah.
You have to come out all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So I would say, like, it wasn't until very recently, within probably the last year, that I came out fully to everyone I know. It's on every social media now. I had put, like, something on social media about Bi Visibility Day, and I it was to the point where I did not realize I had not come out to my family yet. I got, like, a phone call at work. I was like, Mom, why are you calling me? And she's like, your Instagram post. I was like, okay, like, you didn't know, like, growing up. And she was wonderful. She was super supportive about it. But yeah, I've always, and the same thing, that I use he they pronouns, because that one's been more of a struggle and a question. I do not have a very masculine form as a being. I'm a heavier set black man. I carry all of my weight basically in my chest. So I get, even prior to switching up my pronouns, I got misgendered all the time. And it's something that upsetted me a lot. Because there are tidbits that I enjoy about my masculinity and want to be perceived as such. So that's why I keep he, they. The way I like to describe it to people is, I'm he to strangers, I'm they to everyone who knows me.
I like that.
Because, like, once you can see me as, like, a masculine form first and foremost, I can finally be like, yeah, I actually hate all of that. Don't enjoy being a boy or man at all. Don't abide by any of that nonsense. But once you see me that way, then you could break it down into, now you know Dennis for real.
I like that you came out and I came out accidentally in very different ways. Like, your accidentally was via Instagram, and my accidentally was after Christmas dinner, doing dishes with my mom and my aunt. And she kept being like, hey, Ryan, when are you going to have a boyfriend? Do you have a boyfriend? When's that boyfriend coming along? And eventually I was just like, I don't know. Boyfriend, girlfriend, does it really matter? And then utter silence.
That's a smooth way to do it, yeah.
Oh, it was a total accident. My mom doesn't believe me to this day that it was a complete and total accident. And then a couple months later, my dad and I are sitting by the fireplace outside, And he starts talking about it. And I was like, wait, when did you find this out? I hadn't told you yet. Coming out's weird.
It's weird. It's just so weird and dumb.
Yeah. So you said you figured yourself out more in college, was that right?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, I thought prior to that I was just a weird straight guy.
We have so much in common, I can't even, like, figure this out right now. Like, we are distant soulmates in a weird way.
Also, I am by trade a teacher as well. I'm not currently teaching, but I teach high school English.
I just got my master's a couple months ago.
Yep.
And I should have my full teaching license, but OSPI won't acknowledge that I took the West B, and I'm very mad at them about it.
And Chicago will not realize that I took my credentials in Arizona, and so I do not need to take the EdPTA here, because I went through a full education program, thus I know how to teach.
The EdTPA was so bad.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So I'm fighting my way around not doing that. I've already got my accreditation elsewhere, like, please.
Please don't make me do it again.
Please.
It's so nebulous.
Mm-hmm.
This is not a teaching podcast, but we're completely...
Yep, it's teaching time now.
It's teaching time now. Oh my god. Yeah, I also figured out my sexuality in college. Mm-hmm. Growing up, I come from a very small town. Like, it's literally so small that it's named after a rock. That's not a joke. So, growing up, I didn't have any positive examples of queerness.
Yeah.
And then I get to college, and then I meet Mads, and that was kind of the door that opened everything for me. And then we still didn't date until the summer of my junior year, so go figure.
That's how it goes.
Yeah. That's a funny story that I'll tell sometime off the podcast. I wonder how much of a theme that kind of is in our community. Yeah. Like, just the whole not figuring out until college thing.
Yeah, because it is quote unquote not the norm. So, like, as much as it is, like, coming out, is finding that realization. But, like I said, looking back, I could see all the very queer things I was doing growing up. And be like, oh yes, that was me just being myself. And not fully understanding it, because the only lens I have to see through it is through this heteronormative lens.
Yeah. I'm trying to think back to whether or not I did queer things as a child, and literally the only thing I can think of is getting in an argument with my mom about the fact that boys don't have to wear shirts underneath overalls.
Yeah.
Which is such a country girl thing, get in an argument with your mother.
Because I am an avid overall wearer, and I was like, I always wear a shirt under my overall.
I've always grown up in small areas, and my brother didn't have to wear a shirt under his overalls, but I had to, and I did not like that. Yep. When you figured out your queerness, was it a relief to you, or was it like oh, that makes sense?
Yeah, it was very much, I get that. That makes, fair enough, fair enough.
That tracks.
That tracks. Yeah, because it is just who I am. So, like, fully putting it to words and realizing it. And the same thing about my gender as well. You know, everyone went into quarantine one gender and they come out another, you know. It gives you the time when you're not under the stress of capitalism and society to figure out who you are.
I definitely went into quarantine growing out my hair, and then came into the middle of quarantine shaving my hair. Yeah. And now we're getting, hopefully, closer to the end of the pandemic, and I'm growing out a mullet.
Yeah. That's the look, though.
Oh, my goodness. Hello, everybody. Once again, I am editing with a sleeping puppy in my lap. Oh, big stretch. So I didn't go upstairs to use my normal microphone. Sorry about that. But we've got a couple of great little ads for you guys from the Be Gay Roll Dice Network, and then I'll let you get back to the show. Love you all. Bye!
There are, in our world, certain places that seem to draw on the strange.
Tragic news on this, the first day of school in Chillhaven, as a local teen has been found dead under what authorities are describing as mysterious circumstances.
The unusual.
So sleeping is difficult because I don't blink, so...
Oh my god.
The monstrous.
And then he vomits out his whole skeleton onto his desk.
What?
And when you were a hip, young teen coming of age in one of these locations,
So I'm like walking, trying to like subtly unzip my hair out of my backpack.
it doesn't matter if you are an aspiring scientific genius,
What do they fluctuate, Zeke?
Molecules?
a burgeoning telekinetic,
I think you have telekinetic powers.
That's so specific for you to say right now.
or a social media influencer.
And she took a selfie too, and she put their fake glasses.
Your safety is not guaranteed.
Why do I keep being made to look at things that shouldn't be?
In these dangerous times at Chillhaven High.
Dangerous Times at Chillhaven High is a real play radiophonic supernatural teen drama. New episodes every Tuesday. Follow us everywhere at Chillhaven High.
Bored of D&D? Want to try something else? Why not check out Control Group? We test systems so you don't have to. Using our patented mini campaigns along with one-shots, we test how far you can stretch systems with our unique ideas and broad storytelling. Our mission statement is to give a voice to those not often heard in the TTRPG community. So whether it be a system you've never heard of, or our testers being people of color, people on the LGBTQIA+ spectrum, we want to make sure our stories are broad, vast, and told from different perspectives. So whether you want classic role-playing or just big goofs, come listen to us try out systems, some of which we've even made ourselves. You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts, or head over to controlgrouppod.com. That's CTRL, just like the key on your keyboard. There you can find the systems we test along with easily accessible PDFs. So check us out if you're into Monster of the Week, Passion de los Pasiones, A Song of Fire and Ice, Lasers and Feelings, Gunsight, Void Worlds, Wizards and Wands, Stranded, Interstitial, The Last Shonen, and so much more!
Yeah, that's how it was for me too. Like, oh, that makes sense. Just like the other weekend when my sister told me, "Oh yeah, you were diagnosed with ADHD when you were 4," and then no one had told me.
No one told you, yeah. It just
No
makes
one
sense,
told me.
Yeah,
And I'm the eldest sister, so my little sister knew about this diagnosis I got when I was 4, and I found out about it a handful of weeks ago.
yeah, same thing as a person with ADHD as well. Just like, no, I get it. Some days you're just watching TikTok and then someone makes a really relatable video and you're like, yeah, I have a lot of those symptoms. I do overstim with a lot of sounds and often I do forget a lot of things.
For me, it was the Kitchen and Jorn Show, which is a YouTube channel that involves a couple of ladies who used to be part of BuzzFeed on the Ladylike channel. Quick editor's note, this was originally recorded in May of 2021. Since then, both Kristen and Jen from that YouTube channel have come out as experimenting with non-binary pronouns. Thank you, and back to the show. And they both have ADHD, and I was like, huh. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And then one of them started talking about how she can't keep plants alive. And I went, oh my god, it's me. And then I was considering getting tested. And then my sister told me I was diagnosed when I was 4, and just nobody told me. Yep. She was laughing at me, and she starts texting my mom like, yeah, I'm going to check with Mom's. Like, oh yeah, see, this totally happened. See, shows me her phone. So I think what we've discovered throughout this interview is that you and I are basically the same person in two very disparate forms.
Yeah.
I'm glad that we've made this connection today and that we can now live out our best life as a homogenous being in two separate states.
Yeah, exactly. I like to think of it as the plot to the Will Smith flop Hancock, where we are all demigods.
Yes.
But should we get anywhere near each other, we will lose our powers.
I love you. I love that movie. It's so crazy.
I love quoting it.
I also have a particular love for Catwoman.
Oh god, yeah, that one's
and I will
little
fight
too
people
bad.
who tell me, oh no!
That's a little too... I'm a big comic book nerd, so, like, love Halle Berry, but, oof.
See, I love that movie, and I love the themes of that movie. And I will fully acknowledge that it would be a better movie if it was given the budget and the time it deserved.
Yeah.
But it's still a great movie in my heart.
I feel that. I get it.
Dennis, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been great. We're going to have you back.
Absolutely.
Regardless of what happens. I always end the show with the same question. If you were to give advice to a queer person trying to get into the TTRPG community and get into games, what would it be?
I would say just hop on to a Reddit or Crawler, which is the TTRPG like Tinder matchup system. Just put out that you want to play Monster of the Week, and then queer people will all come to you like moths to a light.
It's so true.
It's the easiest bait.
When I told Zoe, hey, I want you on my podcast, here are 4 different choices for you, she flocked to the Monster of the Week with the Lady Motorcycle Gang. So, like, I see no lie in your advice.
Yeah. It's the easiest way.
Well, Dennis, this has been brilliant and amazing, and you're brilliant and amazing, and
You as well.
I'm going to have to hop onto Control Pod as soon as I catch up with Goblets and Gays.
Yeah. That's fair.
That's it for our show. Thank you again to Zoe Hovland for doing our theme music, and thank you all for listening. I know that the release schedule has not been super consistent lately, but I am on new meds and I'm on therapy, and we all have to take a little time to take care of our brains. If you need help taking care of your brain, I'm not a professional, but I will listen. So you can always hit me up on the Twitter account at TGIA Podcast, or shoot me an email at thegameisafootpodcast@gmail.com. I do dearly love you all, and I hope you're doing well. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye!
Be gay. Roll dice.
An LGBTQIA actual play podcast network.